Right, so we're testing time. So I've been given the fault code that affects the that shows me if the motor's overheating, and so what I'm working on right now is trying to replicate this issue. So I'm going to take it for a spin around and see if I can basically warm up this motor and see if it cuts again, and then test it and see if I get the error code. And yeah, so I've been doing a bit of research lately, working out what could be going wrong with the car, and there's a number of things. So first of all, the G-WIZ is a 7:1 ratio, and what that actually works out at is it's about 7,000 RPM. It's about 7,000 RPM at 70 miles an hour, which means this G-WIZ theoretically at this gearing has a top speed of 86 miles an hour. That's 88 miles. That's 2 miles short of 88 miles an hour. So what that means is that the gearing is too high, I guess, and it's causing the motor to draw more current than it should be on acceleration. And at 12,000 RPM is where it's supposed to be at 70. So there's a few options that I can resolve this with that I'm looking into. One of them is investigating the whole AC gearbox. My other option is basically getting mini wheels to go onto the car, and the third option, because the mini wheels are so hard to get, now the third option is to rewire the motor into Y instead of delta. Y will give more torque for the lesser amps, and it'll be hard to overheat the motor that way. And if that does the job, what I'm thinking of doing is getting a Y to delta switch, so that for most of the journeys like round here, so most of my journeys like going around here, I will be able to effectively use Y where it's not overheating on the stops and going, and when I'm on longer stretches I'll use Y, so I'll use delta side, and that would mean that I can achieve faster speeds on motorways, things like that. Oh, I can feel it starting to shut down. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh shit. There it goes. Right, so I'm at a little bit of a loss here. I've just ran it again, and until it decided to cut out. So what you can see here is it looks like the controller isn't overheating, and the BER, which was supposed to signal motor overheat, doesn't seem to be affected either. So I'm wondering what this problem is, because it is still cutting out, something is overheating. So maybe it is the inverter itself, because it is under the back there and it may not have the right ventilation. So my guess right now is that it is potentially the inverter that's overheating despite the fans, and it's cutting out and it's taken a while to come back. So although look at that, 90 volts is reading on the battery voltage, even though my voltage says that it's higher. That's interesting, because mine's set to cut out at 92 volts. I wonder if that's the problem. We'll have to see. Anyway, so that's it for now. I've just got to figure some things out. But the only thing is that it was cutting out. It was cutting out when it was higher So I'm not sure whether it is the batteries, even though the battery volts are reading lower right now. So when it turns back on finally and starts to work, I guess I'll check that again and see if it still says 90 volts on that. That's an odd one. That is an odd one. Because the voltage on the batteries reads a lot higher than it does there, so I should still be at 100 volts according to my meter reading. Right, so unfortunately yesterday the motor was still, well, not the motor, it is there's something else. We did some checks, as you can see on this video, that it wasn't the motor that was overheating. There was some other error codes that I'm still trying to wait for to see if Wolftronics knows what they are. However, as it wasn't the motor overheating, I'm pretty certain it was this controller, because before the fins here, they were behind here, so the air was probably going up inside here and trapping. So I've moved it forward so it's venting out into the cabin. Just going to see how that works and give it a run after I've charged it up a little bit. But my other concern is that maybe it's the inverter that was overheating because of the gearing being so different. But after talking with Paul Compton, he was mentioning that because the car's half the weight, it shouldn't be that bad on the gearing. So now that this is venting out into the cabin, hopefully that's enough airflow, and eventually I'll hopefully hear back from Wolf so that I know what the error codes mean, because unfortunately the program doesn't show me what they are, and I hover it over and try and look at the help, but it doesn't seem to tell me what's wrong with it. So and there's also hardly any manuals online in order to understand what the error codes actually means, so I'm hoping that he can resolve that for me and I can have a bit more of a targeted viewpoint on what I'm going to do in order to get this car running properly. But for now, what I'm probably going to do is test it again with the inverter set like this, with the venting into the cabin. Now the weather isn't great right now, so I may or may not take it out today, because I don't want to get water down into here where it's all rusting out. I need to get that repaired eventually, but if the weather holds, I might take it out in a moment and see if we can replicate the issue. Right, next test. Let's see if this motor breaks. Not motors, let's see if the inverter cuts out. I don't want it to break. But no, the gearing definitely feels a little bit, because you know the acceleration, especially going up a hill. Well, let's see how this works now, see if the inverter chooses to keep running or if it decides to cut out. Right, so I've been driving consistently now. Where it would have cut out before, it didn't, so I do have a feeling it is to do with the cooling on here. Now it was starting to cut down the amps. I could hear the inverters making that sound like it was ready to kind of stop moving. After going up and down the hill about 8 times, I did about 8 miles going up and down that steep hill, and only then did I start to hear the inverter clamp down on the amps. It makes a weird frequency sound when it's doing it, so I was close to cutting out. Let's see if we actually have. We're close. You can hear it. There it is. Yeah, so it is doing it again. Now, definitely think it's an inverter problem. But the issue, I think, is to do with the gearing. Because of the hill climbs on the higher gearing, it's causing the inverter to use more amps in order to get up the hill than what it would normally do. So yeah, that seems to be our problem. So there's two options here. One of them is to put a delta star switch in and basically wire it up in the motor so that I've got high torque, low amps, and then low torque, high speed. And if I can fix a delta switch that way, what I will end up doing is having a really good, it's like an overdrive. So I'll have my high torque for country roads, etc., and hills, and not having to worry about overheating the inverter with too many amps. And then we'll have the low torque and high speed for motorway driving. So that's the plan. And but by the looks of it, that's what I may have to do if I'm going to keep the existing wheel size. Now the other option is to just get the smaller wheel size and not touch anything in the inverter or the motor. So yeah, there's two options there, and we'll just have to have a bit of a think and decide what I'm going to do there. I might hook it up into Y for now and see how it performs. But I think that may have indeed been the issue, is the fact that it was not, that it was, hot air was getting trapped behind the compartment. So if I mount the inverter here instead, I will have a decent airflow, and yeah, I think combined with the Y and delta switch, that might give me an optimal driving experience with the existing gearing. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking about right now. It's not doing too badly though, to be honest. I did manage to drive, and let's see if I have actually completely cut out now. Yeah, so there it is. I have completely cut out again, so I have a feeling that, oh yeah, I have a feeling that it is definitely overheating something inside there, or there is some kind of error. I don't know what, but we will have to do some experimenting and figure it out. So sadly, we're still getting the problem, and I think more than anything now that it is to do with the gearing. So that's all for today, and I'll keep you posted on the progress.